No one expected Ethan Brooks to say yes. The volunteer coordinator stood at the front of the community center room, holding a clipboard and scanning the small group of people seated in metal chairs. The walls were covered with posters about second chances, job training, and rebuilding confidence. Most attendees stared at their phones or the floor. Ethan stood near the back instead of sitting. He kept his jacket on even though the heater hummed loudly. A folded flyer rested in his hand, creased so many times it looked fragile. His shoulders were tight, as if he were ready to leave at any second. Clara Mitchell noticed him right away. She had arrived late after work, balancing her purse and coffee while slipping into a chair near the aisle. She was used to rooms like this, quiet, careful, filled with people who did not want to take up space. But Ethan felt different. There was something about the way he watched the exits instead of the speaker. When the coordinator asked, would any volunteer be willing to mentor someone one-on-one for the first few weeks, the room went still. No hands went up. Clara hesitated. She had planned to work with groups, not individuals. It was easier that way. Safer. But then Ethan looked down at the floor, tightening his grip on the flyer, and something in her chest shifted. She raised her hand. I can, she said. The coordinator smiled. Great. Ethan, would that work for you? All eyes turned toward him. Ethan froze. The pause felt heavy. Clara almost lowered her hand, worried she had pushed him into something he did not want. Then he nodded once. Yeah, he said. That's fine. His voice was quiet but steady. The meeting ended a few minutes later. Chairs scraped. People stood, talking softly or heading for the door. Clara gathered her things and searched the room for Ethan. He was already halfway down the hallway, walking fast. She followed. Hey, she called gently. He slowed and turned. I'm Clara, she said, offering a small smile. Looks like we're working together. Ethan, he replied. Up close, she could see the tired shadows under his eyes. He did not look much older than her, mid-30s, maybe, but his expression carried something older, something careful. They walked toward the exit side by side. I usually meet people at the library, she said. It's quiet, and they have computers. We can start with your resume and see what jobs fit. He nodded. Okay. You don't have to rush anything, she added. We'll take it slow. He glanced at her, surprised, then looked forward again. You don't have to do that. Do what? Care so much. Clara stopped near the doors. I volunteered because I wanted to. For a second, he did not speak. Then he said, thanks. It sounded heavier than a normal thank you. Outside, the evening air was cool. Cars passed on the street. Ethan stepped toward the parking lot, then hesitated. When should we meet? How about Thursday after 6? Clara asked. That works. He nodded again, then walked away without looking back. Clara stood there longer than she meant to, watching his figure fade between rows of cars. She told herself she had done nothing special. She had signed up to help. That was all. Still, as she headed to her own car, she felt a strange pull in her chest, curiosity mixed with concern, and something softer she could not name yet. Ethan reached his truck and sat inside without starting the engine. He unfolded the flyer in his hands and stared at the words, New Paths Career Program. He thought about how close he had come to leaving before the meeting started. About the woman who had raised her hand without knowing him. About the way she had spoken to him like he was already worth the effort. He let out a slow breath. For the first time in weeks, he did not feel completely alone. And he did not know yet that this small decision, staying, agreeing, saying yes, was about to change far more than his job search. It was about to change everything. Thursdays became their routine. Ethan arrived at the library right on time, jacket slightly wrinkled, coffee in hand. Clara was already there, setting up a laptop on the quiet study table. The library smelled of polished wood and old books, a calm that contrasted with Ethan's tense energy. "Hey," she said, glancing up from her notes. "Hey," he replied, voice soft, almost cautious. They started with the resume. Clara guided him through formatting, highlighting skills, and rewriting sentences. Ethan listened, made notes, typed carefully. He was good at following instructions, but Clara noticed how often he hesitated before making decisions, as if doubting himself. "You have experience leading teams," she said. "Don't hide that. Make it stand out." He nodded, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I guess I didn't think it mattered." "It does," she said firmly. "You matter." The words surprised him, and he looked up. For a moment, their eyes met, and he felt an unusual warmth in his chest. Then he looked back at the screen, focusing on the words. After an hour of work, they paused. Clara closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. "You're improving fast. You're ready to start applying soon." Ethan stayed quiet for a moment, fidgeting with a pen. Then he asked, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," Clara said, curious. "How do you not get scared of starting over?" Clara froze slightly. She wasn't expecting that. She closed her laptop slowly and let herself look at him properly. "I was scared. Terrified, actually. After my divorce, I moved to a new city. New job. I had no friends at first. I didn't know if I'd manage." He nodded, listening intently. "And? I survived. I learned I'm stronger than I thought." He studied her. "I don't feel strong." "You are," she said, soft but firm. "You just haven't seen it yet." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy with something unspoken, something almost electric. Ethan shifted, looking down at the papers in front of him. Clara sensed that he wanted to say more but was holding back. When they left the library, the streetlights reflected off the wet pavement from a light rain. They walked together to the corner, side by side but not touching. Clara noticed how carefully he kept his distance, like he wasn't sure if he belonged in her space. "You can come by another day if you want," she said casually. He paused, glancing at her. "Could we maybe meet one more day a week?" "Sure." "For more practice?" she asked. "Yeah," he said quickly. "That, and talking. It helps." Clara smiled, nodding. Something in her chest fluttered. She agreed without thinking too much. Later, as she drove home, she felt a strange mix of excitement and unease. She hadn't planned to care this much. But she did. The second session arrived faster than expected. Coffee replaced the library's quiet hum. They sat at a small table in a corner cafe, the smell of brewed coffee and pastries around them. Conversation flowed more freely. Ethan shared small stories, about fixing cars with his dad, his favorite bands, quiet childhood memories. Clara found herself laughing more than she had in months. It wasn't just the sessions anymore. It was their talks, their shared silences, the way he seemed to open a little bit every time they met. She noticed the tension around his shoulders easing. He laughed at her jokes, not out of politeness, but genuinely. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled across the city, Ethan stopped walking in the middle of the sidewalk. The rain was light, almost misting, but he didn't move to cover himself. "I got the job," he said finally, voice quiet but firm. Clara's eyes widened. "That's amazing. I knew you could do it." He smiled, and for the first time it wasn't guarded. "I couldn't have done it without you." "You did the work," she said. He looked at her seriously, eyes softening. "I don't think I would have tried if you hadn't believed in me first." The words settled in Clara's chest like a soft weight. She hadn't realized how much she wanted him to succeed, not just for the resume, not just for the program, but because she cared about him. Then he hesitated, and she knew he was holding something back. "There's something else," he said. Her stomach tightened. "Okay. When this program ends, he trailed off, then met her eyes. Do we still talk? Clara felt her heart leap. She had asked herself that same question but avoided the answer. Yes, she said, softly. He exhaled, relief clear on his face. Then he looked at her in a way that made the space between them feel smaller. I don't just want people, he said quietly. I want you. Clara didn't answer immediately. She felt it too. Too strongly. And she realized that helping him had led them somewhere she hadn't expected, somewhere fragile, tender, and frightening. As the rain pattered against the cafe windows, she watched him, knowing this was only the beginning. The Thursday meetings had started with resumes and applications, but now, they were about something far deeper, something neither of them fully understood yet. And both of them were drawn into it, willingly. Weeks passed, and their routine became natural. Thursdays no longer meant only resumes and cover letters. Coffee shops replaced the library, and casual chatter stretched into long conversations about music, old memories, and dreams. Ethan laughed more, his shoulders relaxed. Clara noticed the change. The man who had seemed distant and cautious now shared small stories, small jokes, small truths. One evening, after a session at a quiet cafe, they walked through the nearby park. Street lamps glowed softly on the wet pavement, reflecting in puddles. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and cool. Ethan stopped abruptly. Clara turned toward him. I got the job, he said, voice steady but quiet. Clara's face lit up. Ethan. That's incredible. He smiled, something real and open, the kind that reached his eyes. I couldn't have done it without you. You did all the work, Clara reminded him, but she felt warmth spread through her chest. He hesitated, then spoke softly. I wouldn't have tried if you hadn't believed in me first. Clara blinked. The words lingered, heavier than a simple thank you. She felt her chest tighten. Helping him had already become personal, more than she intended. They sat on a bench under a glowing lamp. The park was quiet, the soft hum of distant traffic around them. Ethan looked at the ground, then back at her, as if measuring his words carefully. There's something else, he said. Clara felt her stomach flip. Okay. When this program ends, he started slowly, do we still talk? Her heart skipped. She had been asking herself that question quietly for weeks. Yes, she whispered. He exhaled, a slow release of tension. Relief softened his features. But then he looked at her in a way that made her breath catch. I don't just want people, he said. I want you. The words hovered between them. Clara felt herself pulled in, both exhilarated and cautious. She had not planned to care this much, and the confession scared her. Yet part of her heart had already leaned toward him, unwilling to step back. The next days were different. Ethan stayed later at their meetings. They wandered through downtown streets, sharing stories and coffee, laughing at small jokes, and talking about hopes for the future. The connection between them grew, quiet but undeniable. Clara noticed how carefully he listened to her, how he remembered the smallest details, her favorite band, the way she laughed at her own mistakes, the little things that made her smile. She began to anticipate their meetings, counting down days to see him, wanting to hear his voice. Ethan, too, was changing. He carried himself with a bit more confidence, smiled without hesitation, and shared things he had never told anyone before. But despite the ease, there was still a line neither of them crossed. The tension of possibility lingered, fragile and electric. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky pink and orange, they sat on a park bench overlooking the river. Silence fell comfortably around them. Clara glanced at him, noticing the faint shadows under his eyes and the curve of his smile when he thought no one was watching. I keep thinking about that first night, Ethan said finally. When you said you could help me. I didn't expect anyone to care. You weren't sure anyone would, Clara replied gently. He nodded. I didn't just want help. I wanted someone to see me. To see that I could change. Clara's hand brushed against his, almost accidentally. He didn't pull away. His gaze held hers longer than before. "That's why I asked for more," he said quietly. "I needed someone to believe in me. But then I realized I wanted more than belief. I wanted you." Clara's chest tightened. She wanted to say so many things, but the words felt too heavy. She swallowed and simply let her hand stay in his. The moment stretched, suspended in the soft glow of streetlights and the quiet hum of the river. Neither of them moved to break the tension. They just sat together, letting the weight of the day, the weeks, and the unspoken feelings settle around them. For Clara, it was both thrilling and terrifying. Helping him had begun as a simple act of kindness, a way to guide someone back on track. But now, it had become something deeper, something neither of them could ignore. Ethan's eyes met hers again. There was hope, vulnerability, and longing all at once. He exhaled slowly, as if deciding to trust her completely. Clara realized that the journey they had started together had grown into something neither of them expected. It wasn't just about resumes or jobs anymore. It was about connection, trust, and the fragile beginnings of something tender and real. And in that quiet moment, under the park lights with the river flowing softly nearby, Clara understood that this was only the start. Helping him had led to something far greater, a chance at something neither of them could have predicted, but both secretly hoped for. Their hearts were cautious but open. Their hands touched, their glances lingered, and the unspoken promise hung gently between them, that whatever came next, they would face it together. The night wrapped around them, warm and patient, as if holding its breath, waiting for the next step. Ethan had asked for more than help. And Clara, quietly, knew she wanted to give it. The program officially ended, but Clara and Ethan didn't stop meeting. Thursdays became something else entirely. They met at small cafes, walked along the river, or sat in quiet corners of bookstores. The routine had grown natural, unspoken, and warm. Ethan was no longer the tense, cautious man Clara first met. He laughed easily, leaned in when he spoke, and shared details of his life without hesitation. Clara found herself smiling at things she never expected, noticing the little ways he made space for her in his world. One Friday evening, they decided to watch a movie at a small downtown theater. The rain had stopped, and the streets reflected the city lights and puddles. After the film, they didn't rush to leave. Instead, they wandered to Ethan's car, parked under a street lamp, the soft hum of distant traffic around them. Neither moved to open the doors. Silence wrapped around them, comfortable yet charged. Clara felt her heartbeat quicken, the air thick with things left unsaid. "I've been meaning to say something," Ethan murmured, breaking the quiet. Clara tilted her head. "You're making that face again." "What face?" "The nervous one. When you're about to say something important." He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Guess you know me too well." Clara's chest tightened. She did. She had learned to read him in ways no one else could. "When I first met you, I thought I was just getting help with a resume," he began, voice low. "Then you helped me believe I wasn't broken." Clara's hand brushed against his. She didn't pull away. "And now," he continued, eyes searching hers, "I don't want to pretend that's all this is." Her stomach fluttered. She had felt it too, an unspoken tension, the pull she couldn't ignore. "Can I ask for more than your help?" he whispered. The words hung between them. Clara's mind raced, but her heart felt certain. She had spent weeks seeing him, talking to him, learning him, and realizing she wanted to be part of his life, not just as a helper, but as something more. "You already have," she said softly, her voice steady despite the emotion in it. His eyes widened slightly, hope and relief mingling in their depths. "Is that a yes?" Clara let out a small laugh, the sound light and warm. "It's a we go slow. Honest. And see where this leads." Ethan's lips curved into a genuine smile, and he exhaled, a breath she felt in her own chest. "I can do slow," he said. "As long as I get to do it with you." Outside, the city lights shimmered on wet streets, and the air carried the freshness of the rain. They stayed in the car for a while, hands touching, eyes meeting, neither needing to speak. Words weren't necessary, they had found a connection that didn't require explanation. In the following weeks, their bond deepened. They shared quiet dinners, afternoon walks, and late-night talks that stretched into the early hours. Ethan became her confidant, and she became his anchor. They celebrated small victories, his first paycheck, a job well done, a laugh shared over coffee. They comforted each other on rough days, leaning on the trust they had built. Evenings spent together weren't rushed. They learned each other's rhythms, discovered the small habits that made life feel lighter, and found joy in the ordinary. Clara noticed the way Ethan listened, not just to words, but to feelings behind them. Ethan noticed how Clara cared even in silence, and how she brought warmth to moments he thought would always be cold. One night, they walked along the river, streetlights reflecting in the gentle ripples of water. Ethan stopped, turned toward her, and took her hand in both of his. "Clara," he said softly, "thank you for believing in me. For seeing me. For staying." She squeezed his hand. "I'm glad I did." He looked at her, eyes steady, heart open. "I want to keep doing this, with you. Always." Her heart swelled. She realized that helping him had been just the beginning. In the process, they had built something neither expected, a bond that was tender, real, and alive. They walked on, hands linked, hearts full of hope and quiet excitement. The world around them was calm, yet it felt full of possibility. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew they would face it together. Clara had offered help, and Ethan had accepted it. But in the end, they had found something far greater than assistance, they had found each other. The night wrapped around them, peaceful and warm, as if the city itself recognized the start of something beautiful. No words were necessary. Their hands remained entwined, their hearts aligned, and for the first time in a long while, both felt exactly where they were meant to be. It wasn't just help anymore. It was love, slow and steady, and everything in between.